Hello, I'm Kara from Kara Tarot, and I wanted to do a hashtag because it's very appropriate for the beginning of the year, which is hashtag last 10 decks. If you're like me, you got Christmas present decks, and you might have gotten one or two for yourself as well. And I did, and this was my Christmas present from my mother, who asked me what I wanted, and she got it for me. It's not a new deck. It's been around since 1985. This is the Taschen version of it. The Dali Tarot. It's the box is huge. It's a beautiful velvet box. But the size of it does make it a little difficult. The book is also huge. It's in at least 4 different languages. And the book is by Johannes Fiebig, and it is very well written. I have done a little bit of work with it, not much yet. I haven't done my deep dive, but what I've done with it and what I've read of it, I like the meanings, I like the way it's written. And then of course you have the incredible artwork of Salvador Dali, which is very clearly following the Rider-Waite-Smith system, and yet it's Dali. It is uniquely his own, with some of his own symbols, and including himself and his wife, Gaia, and in pretty much everything the way he did. Most people aren't aware that there is a play by Tennessee Williams based on Dali and his wife called In the Bar of a Tokyo Hotel. It's a play I'm still not quite too old for, and it's a play that I would love to be able to do. His wife is dressed in a sailor suit, and that's one of the tip-offs, because if that's Dali often pictured her dressed in a sailor suit, and that's part of the play. And it's about an artist and the artist's agent. So it's the large box, the large book, and then the deck is in here in its own gilded tuck box. And from here, I will shift to a close-up of this deck, and then I will also continue with the rest of the decks. So the Taschen production of the Dali Tarot, with book by Johannes Fiebig. Again, I have worked with this, so they're out of order, and I won't go through all of them. Things like this is important. This is where your art history knowledge comes in. This is the famous painting of the Death of Marat, and I hope I have that title correct. Used for the 4 of Swords. So while you have your traditional Rider-Waite-Smith meaning, if you are reading this in the image that he has, this was not a good guy. He has a snake here. So you want to incorporate a lot of the elements that Dali has, and which makes it quite a unique reading deck. I do think it will be one of my favorites. Again, this is another artwork. So this is a very early collage deck with great works of arts combined with his own unique art style. That's his wife in one of her guises, the Empress. So I'll just that's almost a Jean Cocteau style. So if you know the artwork from that time period, you'll see other references. Queen of Wands, Marie Antoinette. This is his wife again. So for someone who enjoys art history as I do, there are many different levels to work with here. The beautiful colors, the rich imagery, along with the traditional meanings. This has been on my wish list for quite a while, and it was more than I usually pay for a deck, so I was delighted to have this. I think that's a representation of Merle Oberon in one of the films she was in. So just an incredible, unique deck, which I am thrilled to have as my Christmas present and to start off my hashtag last 10 decks. Up next is a Tarocchini by Giuseppe Maria Mitelli, the Mitelli Tarocchini. I'm not a fan of Tarocchinis in general because I like to have a full deck, but the size of these cards really, and the artwork just made it something I really wanted to have. This is by Dali, and it can be found online. The artwork already, you can see, is just exquisite. This is a normal size tarot card. This is Influence of the Angels Tarot, my favorite tarot. And you can see the width is just slightly smaller and the length is longer. So I do like large decks, but the artwork is just incredible. The Tarocchini from this time period has a different grouping here in the order of the Mitelli deck. So that's something, if you want to work with it, you have to get used to that different grouping. It's, I think it's a Priestess, who I think is also Prudence. I'm just getting to know this, so pardon me if I'm saying something wrong. Empress, Emperor, and 2 Popes. East and West. This is a very different representation of, I believe, that strength in this deck. And then this is time, which is an important difference from the Hermit. And then what we usually think of as the Hermit is the Star. So you can see a little bit of how images in the tarot progressed over time when you're using a deck from this era. It is a pip deck, but illustrated, which I love. All of the knights here. I started to say something that was wrong. The cups, beautiful cups in different colors. The knights on their horses in different directions. Which, of course, adds to your reading. Showing a little more of this deck just because I do love the artwork. He signed the Ace of Coins, Giuseppe Maria Mitelli. So just everything about this deck. I really love the look of it. Historic Pip Deck, I Tarocchini, Giuseppe Maria Mitelli by Dali. So the second deck that I have on my list is the Desert Illuminations Tarot by Lindsay D. Williams. I happen to be working with this deck a lot this week, and I'm enjoying it. I love the bright colors. The bright colors and the desert theme is so fun. the book, which she calls a codex. Obviously, you can see the brilliant bright colors of the deck. And that's one reason I got it. I just love these bright neon colors. The book is called a codex. And there are some changes in this deck. Pentacles are cactus, swords are daggers, wands are chilies, and cups are jugs. So it's all a desert theme. Typical book. It does have a picture for each one, even though it's a black and white picture. This is her major spread, the Cactus Tarot spread, which I used as my deck interview with this deck. And then she has, I think she has a smaller spread here too. Oh, she talks about 1 and 3 car spreads in the beginning. So it's out of order because I have been working with it. Again, the cactuses are tied in with aliens in the Pentacles or Earth suit. That's something that's not that great to me. This is the 4 of daggers. Really like that representation. I'm not an alien fan, so that kind of tips it over the edge for me as something that's not going to be near and dear to my heart, but I do love these bright colors, and it's such fun representations of the traditional imagery, as you can see. Rider-Waite-Smith based Wheel of Fortune. And I'm enjoying the take that she has on the cards in her writing in the codex. So as you can see, it has diversity, it has bright colors. So Desert Illuminations Tarot, a very fun deck. Oh, and edged in teal, and look at these backs. Includes pretty much all the colors that predominate in the deck. The Desert Illuminations Tarot by Lindsay D. Williams. She also had a wonderful deck of saints, also in these bright colors. It was not a tarot deck, although it did have 78 cards, so you might want to look that up too. The next deck is also by US Games. I forgot to say Desert Illuminations is now available by US Games, and that's the version that I just showed you. This deck, I think, is bound to become a favorite for me. The feeling that I get just picking it up is really wonderful. There are many glowing reviews of this deck online and many flip-throughs, so I don't have to go through much of it. The Curious Travels Tarot deck. A very interesting incorporation of animals and children mostly, and then sort of alternative people characters in different body shapes and not necessarily human looking. And that's okay. It all works together in this incredibly beautiful artwork. Very nice box, as you can see. And I don't know if there we can pick it up. Isolated gilding on the cards, which other people have mentioned. I don't love every image, but overall, this deck, I adore this version of the Hermit. And it also, having just looked at the Mitelli that was the star instead of the Hermit, you can see that this blends in some history as well. This is a diverse deck in terms of the representation of the people when they are there, or not exactly people, as you can see. It has a separate card, the Traveler's card, Wands, and here the King of Wands. You just see he has fire instead of a normal face. I really just the inventiveness and beauty of these images. There's an innocent quality to them, and some of them a disturbing quality. It's a really wonderful mix. The Curious Travels Tarot deck. I have not begun working with this yet, and I really look forward to it. I suspect it will become a top deck for me. Deck 5 is a deck that speaks to the history nerd in me and the part of me that thinks I will delve into research more deeply than perhaps I really do. The Splendor Solis Tarot. This is still available from the creator's website, Marie Angelo, and this is the version produced by Alchimia. It's a really well done version of that original deck. The original deck has a larger book. This is a deck that is not for beginners. It will require a great deal of research to use it the way it's intended to be used. Splendor Solis is a manuscript from 1582, and it is about the inner alchemies of Mithraic light. So it's about alchemy, and it's about Kabbalah, and that is intrinsic in this deck, especially in this suit that shows the trees, which is the suit of cups. So right away, you're seeing something that might be a little confusing, but it shows the path on the Kabbalah. I'm not going to go into a whole lot about this. There is one very good video on YouTube about this, which I will try to link. There are a lot of others where people go through the decks and show you the cards, but there's one that really talks about how to understand this deck, and that's the one I would recommend. It has a soft, buttery kind of gilding, and it uses illuminations from the actual historic manuscript. The borders change with the different suits. Again, you'll see a lot of the Tree of Life. Now, I have seen some people online that they say this is the alchemy of the Fool, and they find a way to use that as just the regular Fool in the RWS way of thinking about it, and they just don't always work in that way, and it's because they weren't created to be just that. I guess those people feel that it works that way for them. I personally would want to do a lot more in-depth research with this deck and really understand the intention and the meanings behind the creation of it. So for me, this is one that I was really delighted to have a version that was didn't have to be a top-of-the-line version from the creator, but the publication version, which is beautifully done. It has rose petal finish, so it's a joy to hold. It's beautiful to look at. Certainly it'd be an incredible meditation deck. Just look at that. And again, you can see there's isolated gilding on these cards. The Splendor Solis Tarot, if you want something that you're really going to dive deeply into and do a lot of research and learn a unique system, then this is the deck for you. From a deck that's very abstract to a deck that is almost immediately usable. If you know the Rider-Waite-Smith system, you will find this very easy to use. I will say, this is the Tazama African Tarot, and I got a used copy. You can see the gilding on the box is a little dinged up. Also, it came initially with a very nice leather pouch, and it also came with a card that, a face card, of course, that said something about the deck. But it's a nice box. Discover the message within, velvet lined, a very nice book. Again, rose petal finish. Using portraits and photographs of historic Africans. And then many of those portraits were actually colored to begin with, but then they changed them all to black and white. So it is a collage deck, which you know I love. Again, this kind of buttery colored gilding. I have used this deck, so it's out of order, and it is just so easy to use. Just traditional Rider-Waite-Smith imagery, so straightforward. The colors for each suit change in the background, so all the pentacles have this color background, all the cups have this color background. And then the majors have a great variety. Again, isolated gilding. And as I said, many of these were originally paintings of Africans, some from the 1700s, 1800s, but then they've been photographed and turned into black and white to match the ones that were photographs, and then are collaged into this deck. All the swords have this color. So you can look at it right away and see this is a straightforward Rider-Waite-Smith deck. It just has African ancestors. And one of the nice things about it is it has a resource where you can go online and download an additional book. This book is kind of just, if you want to dive into the cards and use the cards, one thing that you know I love, it has an affirmation for every card. And that's something that if I ever created a deck, I would want to do that. Because right away then it means you can also use it as an oracle card. You can go online, I interrupted myself, you can go online and find the original artwork that this person was taken from, either a painting or a photograph, and it tells you about who that person was as much as they know. So that online resource that is additional material available for this deck is really wonderful. Again, I won't go through the whole thing, but you can see it's very straightforward in terms of being able to read. I have worked with this deck, and it is exactly what I thought it would be in terms of just a straightforward Rider-Waite-Smith deck that happens to have African characters. And my collection of collage decks tends to be very Eurocentric, so I welcomed this with open arms into my collection and into the cards that I will work with. The Tazama African Tarot. It is still available from the original publisher, which is, you can look it up at Tazama African Tarot. Abusua Pa at the publisher. Still available from them with the entire package. For me, I just wanted the deck to be able to work with it, so used on eBay worked for me in this case. The next deck is one that I waited over 6 months for. They were doing another printing of it, and then they had some printing issues, and it took them quite a long time. But I was happy to wait for it because I knew it was a deck that I was going to love. It's one you've probably seen before, the Terra Volatile. I also got the paperback version of the book. There is a beautiful glossy version of this book, but I figured for me, because I know this is going to be a working deck for me, this would be sufficient. One of the things about this deck you may know is that it had an additional suit added, vessels, which is supposed to add to the alchemical representation within the deck. This deck also has many, many optional cards. These are all the optional representations. Again, it's a collage deck. So those are the ones that I've set aside that I'm not working with. And again, it's out of order because I have begun working with it a little bit, familiarizing myself with it. It is, in many respects, very traditional, as well as being very traditional artwork, but it is the artwork that I love. This is the Three of Vessels. You see, the vessels are different from cups in this deck, and they have to do with alchemical spirit. So I won't go through the whole deck. Exquisite, exquisite artworks. I fully expect this to become one of my top 5 decks when I begin actually working with it. All of the devil images are disturbing in this deck. So I will just fire through these a bit. And the Tower, Ace of Vessels. It also says that if you don't want to work with a 5th suit, you can trade out vessels and cups and just use whichever you prefer as cups. A beautifully written book. These are traditional size, a little narrower than traditional size, but traditional height. Tarot size. This book says it's the pocket edition, which you can see it's if that's the pocket edition, you know that the other version is quite elaborate. Terra Volatile, and that's by Credo Qui Absurdum, and you can just look it up online by Terra Volatile, or you can look up by this and find them online. Still available, and I believe still only available through the creators. Deck 8 I've already done a brief deck review of, and that is the Pulp Tarot by Todd Alcott. Has this wonderful box that is in the shape of a book. Looks like an old used pulp paperback book. Little white book. And then the cards are based on advertising art from the 20s to the 60s, but mostly based in the 40s and 50s. You can listen to my other brief review of this deck. You'll see my deck is warped. It's kind of warped that this is high and these 2 corners are low. And it is a thin cardstock. It's about the weight of the traditional Lo Scarabeo cardstock. If anyone knows how to fix an entirely warped deck, I think you can see it there. This corner bends in and that corner bends in, and these are up. if you have any ideas on how to get rid of that. But that's not, I got it for the artwork because I like advertising artwork. It reads very strong, very overdramatic, just like a film noir, melodramatic, hyper emotional. That is something I have not liked about it. I feel that it was screaming at me in the week that I was using it. But it's still fun. It's fun to look at. It's fun to just have sitting around and for people to flip through. And it would be, as I have said before, it would be great if you are like hired to read at a party and sit in the corner. That would be a very fun deck to have with you. And then the heightened emotions of it really wouldn't matter because it's a party setting. The Pulp Tarot by Todd Alcott. For any of you who've watched my other videos, you know I am a Christian tarot reader. And so, of course, this is a no-brainer for me. I am not a fan of grayscale decks, but I am a fan of great artists. This is the Great Bible Tarot with the artwork of Gustav Dore. Now, there are two decks available with Gustav Dore's artwork. One of them is grayscale. This one, the Great Bible Tarot, and I think that's called the Dore Tarot. This one, the Great Bible Tarot, is more of a golden scale, and it has a border. Nice finish. Now, I will say it's blurry down here in the printing. This card, the information card, is not blurry. This is nice and clear, but this is the only information card that comes with the deck. You really do need the book. The book exponentially expands what you understand about this deck, and it gives a scripture for each card. It details the original artwork and how that fits with the card meaning. Again, these are out of order because I have worked with it some. Some of them are very simple to put together. The Emperor, the Knight of Wands, maybe not so much. The Eight of Swords. So you really need to think about it. And for me, I got it both for the artwork, but also because this deck is considered bibliomancy, which is the reading of the Bible. If you do divination, the reading of the Bible for divination. But since I do tarot for personal illumination and kind of understanding the subconscious, these images are, of course, very evocative. They have remained relevant for centuries now. The etchings of Dore. The Great Bible Tarot by Gustav Dore. And let me give you just a bit. The book is large print and has color versions of the cards, which is wonderful. Biblical meaning, interpretation, and the description here often will include a scripture for almost every card. So it's a lot to work with if you are a Christian who is blending your practice of the tarot for personal growth with biblical understanding. This is great. This is from a company in the Ukraine called Pyroskin Gifts. And I don't think they're the printer, but that's the only place that I found this version available. The publisher of this is DoreBibleTarot.net, but it takes you right to that other company. So it was together. These make this one of the most expensive decks that I have. And so the blurriness on the bottom of that card is a little irritating. However, this is the back of the deck. However, knowing what's going on in the Ukraine, I'm happy to be supporting a company in the Ukraine and then have this content. My last deck out of the 10 is an historic deck from the 1940s, the Lasenic Tarot, and that is the name of the artist, Pierre de Lasenic, his original name, Petre Pavel Kou. He lived from 1900 to 1944. It is an historic tarot deck. I rarely see this one. I came across this on a post from the incredible Laetitia Barbier, who wrote the marvelously researched book about the history of the tarot. And she had a post with these, and this artwork really appeals to me, this time period. So I wanted to get it. Just a tuck box. Again, this is also from that Ukrainian company, Pyroskin Gifts. It says it's published in the Czech Republic. This is the only little white book that comes with it. It's interesting because it breaks things down by number. And this is a reprint of the original booklet that came with, first this was a club deck. It was printed for a club in 1939, and then in the 1940s, the color reprint was available, and this is the color reprint. Again, I've been working with it a little bit, so it's out of order. It is a pip deck, as you can see, brightly colored pips, and what I would call decorated pips, not illustrated pips. But this this wonderful kind of 1940s style artwork speaks to me highly. All of the majors have the black backgrounds. And then the court cards have white backgrounds. Or this is all kind of a creamy butter yellow, unique. The size of this deck is shorter than a regular tarot card and also a bit narrower. I don't know if you can see that. Just so a little bit narrower, a little bit shorter. If you like odd historical decks, it is both of those things. And I look forward to working with it more. It's kind of a straight Tarot de Marseille in terms of reading style. And then just you have a lot to work with because of the illustrations. Again, this is from that company Pyroskin Gifts in the Ukraine. You can just look it up by the name of this deck, though, the Lasenic Tarot, and you can find it there. Again, not an inexpensive deck. Both of these decks, I think, were over $50, and then adding the shipping from the Ukraine. So this was a thoughtful purchase of two decks that are very unique. And I wanted to add one book that I have not even really broken the cover yet. I've started listening to the audiobook. Usually I will read and listen. There is a monk who is online a lot with interviews, and a lot of what he talks about, it's Brother Richard, I can't remember his last name. He kind of does the rounds of paranormal interview shows, because he specifically addresses what's talked about in this book from the 1800s, written by an abbot, Augustin Calmet, where this book is delving into the realms of the world, of the real world, that are beyond what we usually consider to be part of this world. And one of the things that Brother Richard talks about is not everything in this world that is of a different spirit is evil. And not everything that we consider to be myths are myths. He quoted someone from Ireland when he asked him, do you believe in fairies? And the man said, I don't have to believe in them, they're here. And so Brother Richard talks about this confluence of the Christian faith and what is often considered to be non-Christian paranormal experiences. This book begins with angels. It starts with talking about the appearance of angels as delineated in the Bible, and angels interacting with people. And so starting right there with that is part of this world, and also knowing the good from the bad, knowing when it's a good thing, knowing when it's a bad thing. So this is an historical text. It is dense, and the language is more dense because of the time period in which it was written. I'm trying to find that year that it was written, 1850. But if you're interested in this kind of thing, it's worth looking up. As I said, I'm listening to the audiobook reading of it, which is automated, so that's, but it's still a reading of it at the same time that I am reading through it. So it's just, if you are interested in the interplay, especially from a Christian point of view, the interplay of things in this world which are not of the human sphere, and that are of the spirit sphere, and whether they are of this world, and whether they are of a negative or positive nature. If you're interested in those things from the point of view of an abbot from the 1850s, this is a work that the living Brother Richard refers to regularly. And that's why I got it. This would be something that you can enjoy. There are many different translations of it. I think I found this on Thrift Books. It's you can see from the printing, this is kind of a reprint of old print, but that it's a little larger than some. So I hope you've enjoyed my 10 recent tarots. I don't think I'm saying that exactly correctly. I will look up the hashtag before I do the title. My 10 new decks, and this book that I wanted to recommend. And of course, there are books with each one of these decks for the most part. So a lot to dive into for your 2025. Best wishes this year. Thank you.